Hi, this is your girl T with Rockafellas Barber Shop, located at 1733 Babcock in San Antonio, Texas. Whether you're looking for a haircut, a shave, braids, dreads, weaves, color, we do it all here at Rockafellas. You can hit me up at 210-884-9046. That's for call or text. And on Facebook and Instagram at Takesha Williams. That's TAKESHIA William. And you're listening to us now on I Am Refocused Podcast on iHeartRadio.
You are listening to I Am Refocused Podcast with your host, Shemaya Reed. This podcast is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. Now, let's tune into today's podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to I Am Refocused Podcast. Today, man, we have another awesome episode. If you haven't been checking us out on iHeartRadio, make sure you get the app and just download and search I Am Refocused, and it'll pull right up. So today, real quick before we start everything, I want to tell everybody, please keep Parkland, Florida in your prayers. I'm sure you watched the news about the shooting at that high school. Just keep the family and the people in that area in your prayers, and just keep God first and just keep going.
Amen. I
do not want to go further with this podcast without giving the main shout out to the owner, Rico Rodriguez. He's been down with us since day one. And also big shout out to Bebe McClinton, All Sports Speed and Conditioning. Make sure you go visit his website, allsportsfitness.net. And the best donuts in San Antonio, Miss Kim, River City Donuts. Today, guys, we have an awesome guest, Mr. Lawrence, a.k.a. Larry Brown. He served in the United States Army. He was Special Forces. He's a veteran. Tell everybody hello. How you doing today?
Hello, folks. God bless you all, and to all those who could not be here listening with us, keep those good people in your thoughts and prayers. It's great to be here. Thank you, Shemaya. Thank you for letting me be here to share some thoughts with you today.
And we're going to get really into your story, but before we do, just tell us, how did you get into the military? How was that process?
Oh, that was amazing. I grew up knowing that one day I would serve. My folks knew, even as a child, I would one day go in the service. I had the little green Army soldiers.
Okay. Yeah.
I had a plane that was blue and red wings. I stuffed the soldiers in the front and run over my other friend's soldiers and dump mine on top of them. I didn't know they call that a vertical envelopment, and I'd literally be doing that years later. I'd have my Remco tank on the ground, and I'd run over the rest of them. I didn't know that that's exactly how we fight wars and win. I was doing this at 6 years of age. At 20 years of age, after 2 years at George Washington University. See, the Army's what happens, Shemaya, when your folks can't put away for college and send you to summer camp like the rich kids in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So you go to college, and I went to George Washington University. I was blessed to be able to go there for international affairs. I was accepted at American University as well. Had 2 years of great times. Met all the ladies in campus. Went to all the parties in Washington, D.C., then told my folks, I'm not going to continue to waste your money. I know I could, but I know, I'm going to go in the Army. They're going to get my head out, and put it back on my shoulders, and I'll finish school on the GI Bill. Well, I enlisted. My folks were flabbergasted. All the work they've done so that I wouldn't have to do that as a choice. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't there a month. I called home and said, Mom, this is like Camp Granado on steroids. I can't believe it. I get to shoot guns, jump out of planes, chase nasty people around the world, and go camping every week. And Mom, they pay me for this. This was great.
And speaking of jumping out of planes, what was the process of your mind before you made that jump, the first one?
Well, let me explain it to you. Because, see, we had a nasty message we wanted to give to the enemies of the American people. And I asked anyone, did you want me to take that Pony Express or Federal Express? That's why we do what we do. I'd always wanted to jump. I'd heard it was just an incredible experience since being a young teenager in the Civil Air Patrol. My mother said, I'm not going to pay for you to go up and kill yourself. I'll wait till you go in the service. You can do that as a grown man. I couldn't wait. I enlisted for intelligence, military intelligence. I volunteered for airborne. And I said, let the Army figure out how to put all that together. I had no idea what that was all going to be. They let me know. They took me through 8 schools after basic training. And that's where the Special Forces part came in. The jumping was a hoot.
And we was talking a little before the show how sometimes your food just goes up to the ceiling. Explain that.
It's the way you get to where you're going. They take you off like you'd go on the space shuttle. They drop you from the altitude, the flying altitude, 35,000 feet, down to 1,200 feet, as if you were in an elevator, and the cable broke. And for 1 minute you're there, and they tell you you're standing up, you're preparing to jump. So you had your hand on your static line, and your static line, you're hooked up to the static line anchor cable, and you're balancing. Your knees bent, and you're balancing, and they drop you out of the sky, and everything goes north. It's so funny. It's the most amazing feeling. If you've ever dropped in any distance, elevator or whatever, and that light feeling you have, it's like that, but multiplied.
Now, what was in military? What was your favorite experience and why?
Favorite experience? Eating was always a favorite experience.
Okay.
I mean, because you can never be certain when that was going to happen. I was gone 2 weeks out of every month for 2.5 years in order to become fully 18 qualified. My job in the service, I designed, trained, and led the first airborne psychological warfare team, which is also part of Special Forces. But they wanted a team that was fully Special Forces qualified to go in with an A team. I had to become fully 18 qualified myself, and as the intelligence person, I had to be counterinsurgency. That's what they were trained to do. Special weapons, silent kill, and of course, completely field operative. So I brought intelligence, PSYOP, and all the other nifty, neat things like shuriken and other things to the battlefield when I went. It took me 2.5 years, gone every 2 weeks.
And how was that with your family? You know, how did they adjust to that? You always being gone?
They never did.
Oh yeah,
probably why I've been married more than once. It's a strain on a personal life for everyone because you're always gone. And this is just the training part. In the middle of that training, there were things like the Yom Kippur War and other things that went on, where we were in training and then pulled for a real deployment, etc. So you never know, and you're gone. You're simply gone. You get so used to being outside that when you're home, you roll into the wall or you roll over and fall on the floor because you're just never quite sure where you are.
And you know, military is a very, very structured atmosphere.
Yes.
And you have all these leaders and have all these disciplines. You have to, a lot of things you're responsible for.
Yes.
What's one mission, if you have a story maybe, what's one mission that sticks out to you?
Understand this, that my responsibility and the best I can share with anyone was that I was an instructor. I was an instructor, for example. I was asked to represent the Special Forces Command and the platform of the 18th Airborne Corps NCO Academy at age 23. My responsibility was to train and to train well, not with some pie-in-the-sky ideas or fighting the last war, but prepare people for what was coming. My first day, for example, as an instructor, they said, Brown, lead the first run. I didn't know how fast that was supposed to be, so I started running. And whoever could keep up, kept up. I thought all the cars were admiring our tight formation and our shine boots, and it was because we were running 10 miles an hour. We ran 10 miles in 55 minutes that first morning and every day after that. They can't pass you on post if you're going 10 miles. They can't pass a formation at greater than 10 miles an hour. It used to drive them nuts. They'd get stuck with us for 5 miles out. They were always late to work, so everybody had to leave early because they couldn't go. But that's what we did. I wanted people to be that qualified so that our enemies would stay where they were and recognize that they don't want any part of this.
And when you got out of the military, what's one of the things that just always stuck with you as far as things that you learned in the military with leadership?
You're speaking of leadership, okay. My first thoughts were, one day you're training and the next day you're in the streets of home, me, Trenton, New Jersey. That's something, fortunately, that has changed. They didn't have a name for PTSD. They didn't understand what it was. And so one minute you're in a good mood, and then you get some Yahoo, is that a good word to use? Yahoo. Who hadn't been anywhere but down the street and around to the liquor store, in your face. You don't know this person, you're dressed just as I'm dressed now, and they want to challenge you. You're a hand-to-hand combat special weapons instructor. They don't know that, okay? And, those were the first situations. I had to learn to deal with a world that was not prepared in the area of the discipline and responsibility. When I came out of the service, I came out with a 2-year-old child. I was a single parent. When 3% of men were getting custody of their children, I was one of those 3%.
Wow.
I had serious responsibilities for a 24-year-old.
And what was your next step? Where did you start working, or what was your next step when you was out of service?
Again, secure a civilian life that made sense. Return to school, stable job, residence to live in with that child, so that we could go on where we were. Fortunately, God bless my folks, let them rest in peace. We had New Jersey. I could go back there, go to school, and at least have some guidance. It wasn't a question of financial aid or whatever, because we didn't have that. And my folks would say, once you leave school, you're on your own. But at least they were there to help direct me, help guide me, give me some help in that way, and some moral support as I moved and did this. I was a single parent for 9 years.
In those 9 years, what's some things that you did with your kids for family time, as far as just being there for them and teaching them everything that you knew from your parents?
The biggest thing that I was able to share with my youngsters that was shared with me was this sense that you have a responsibility, that at 18 years of age, you're leaving home. You're either going to college, where you can come back and visit in the summers, you're going in the military, or you're going to get a job in your own apartment. But at 18, you're leaving. Now, we were all told this at 2. I sat my children down at 2. I said, now, after sharing that with them, I reminded them, you spent the first 2 years learning how not to throw food down your chest and poop in your pants. You've only got 16 more years. I would suggest you get busy.
And not to speed up too fast, but when they got older, what some of the things that your kids, what paths did they take?
They all understood exactly that. My son, the one I came out of the service with, he went to actually the same high school I did. In fact, they said he was valedictorian of the high school. They said, you mean that was your father? I can't believe it. He was incorrigible. They said, but he graduated valedictorian. He went to Harvard, was an incoming scholar. He graduated from Harvard. He went to Princeton for his doctorate. And the job he had at at Fish and Neves, this is a patent attorney firm that patented our telephone, the assembly line, and the airplane. They sent him to Fordham Law School. So now he's a patent attorney and vice president of Par Pharmaceutical and director of intellectual property rights there.
Wow.
How does that make you feel to see your kids be so successful? I mean, that's awesome.
Thank you. But I take no credit for it, other than the sense of trying to keep them to that mark that was established. But my folks, when they were alive, perpetuated that. Remember, my dad went to Harvard when he was 16.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
He had a scholarship to the New England Conservatory of Music. But the war was on, World War II. There was discrimination in World War II, and he didn't want to be shoveling horse stuff with his brain. So he turned in that scholarship and knew that if he went into science or whatever, that they were called critical fields at the time. So he turned in his music scholarship, went to Harvard on, again, his folks. My grandfolks paid for it. There were no student loans or anything like this. Went to Harvard for chemistry, physical chemistry. That was a critical field. He didn't know that the war would be ended by the time he graduated. That also happened to be, by the way, Robert Kennedy, the late Robert Kennedy's class of 48 at Harvard.
Wow.
His sister, they put her through Wellesley, which at the time only boys could go to Harvard. Women went to Wellesley. She went to Wellesley. This was a postal worker and a garment worker.
Wow.
I'm seeing a theme of just hard work, not playing games.
There's no games to be played. This is real world.
What's something that your parents said to you as you were growing up that just stuck with you, that never left you?
While we were growing up, we still had legalized segregation. I lived in Washington, D.C. till I was 12. So we saw things that didn't make sense. We saw things on television. I mean, they reminded us that we have a responsibility to ourselves, to our posterity down the line, and to the community and nation later on. And we were flabbergasted. They said, and even if this persists, and you have to run twice as hard as somebody, Caucasian or otherwise, I would suggest you get your shoes on and start running.
I like that.
So get it done. So for us, in our house, A was fine. As long as you got an A, great. B, only if you know why you didn't get an A, so you can get an A in the next test. C's don't live here.
Ooh, that's a tight space right there.
They weren't smiling. I didn't make any mediocre children. I'm not raising any.
Wow.
I passed that to my children. My son got his first B in school his second year of Harvard. I told him, I'll know when you discover girls because you'll bring home a B. He did, and I said, I only want to know two things. What's her name, and is this serious? He was so embarrassed. From kindergarten through his sophomore year at Harvard, he'd never had anything other than an A.
Wow.
I don't just mean on his finals, I mean on all of his tests. He maxed the SATs in all 5 achievement tests.
Wow.
So, again, the lessons. Follow the lessons. Put the shoes on and run the race. And win. And win.
So it's clear your expectations were not just high for yourself, but high for your kids, and also your parents' expectations for you were high.
Absolutely. They were second generation, remember, college. My parents were second generation. My grandfather, and you may have heard of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, the Zeta Phi Betas.
Yes.
Well, if you studied that, one of the 3 founders of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity was Reverend Leonard Morris. That's my granddad.
Wow.
Wow.
Black History Month.
He went to Howard in 1911. He founded, with 2 other gentlemen, the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity in 1914.
Wow.
Excellence is the norm. It's not something that you do if you've got an extra spare minute from acting the fool.
I like that.
There's no time for that.
I like that.
In that dash between the day you were born and when the Lord decides, because He will decide when to take you home. You got work to do, and everybody needs to recognize that they have a responsibility, individually and uniquely, to do their part for His tapestry.
And not to fast forward too far ahead, but you are still working to this day. There's a lot of things you're involved with, organizations, feature film producer, right?
Associate
producer. Touch on some of the organizations that you're involved with today, because I'm going to tie back on purpose a little bit later.
I appreciate that. Thank you. American Legion, of course. But I am a past exalted ruler of the San Antonio Elks, the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks of the United States of America. I'm the first African-American exalted ruler, now past exalted ruler. I'm current Lodge Chaplain and expect to be for the next administration. I'm Southwest District Vice Chair of the PER, Past Exalted Ruler, Lodge President, Past Exalted Ruler Association for the Southwest District here in Texas. These are great honors. The Elks are responsible for taking care of veterans, disabled veterans, and special needs children, as well as normal children. The Elks donate $4.5 million a year in scholarships, more than any other organization except the federal government, for kids going to school. At our lodge last year, one of our applicants came out number 2 for the nation, and she earned a $40,000 scholarship to college. But this is what we do. Texas is one of the few states that has a special needs children's camp.
Wow.
Children can apply, or their parents can apply for them, and 7 weeks each summer, 50 children a week get to go to camp. Give of course, their parents the break, and they get a chance to enjoy life with other children, professionally supervised and fully paid for by the Elks.
Wow.
So the common theme with your story is always being productive, no matter what.
It's about
Find
service,
something to do.
productive service to others, because this is not about you. It's not about us. The person who still hasn't figured out that it's not about them is a person that I feel sorry for, because they're living a life running in circles rather than a life of fulfillment,
Right.
of enjoyment. This is about service to others, because at some point it's all going to come back to benefit you,
Exactly.
either here or in eternity, or both.
And speak on that a little bit for someone listening. It doesn't matter what background they are, whatever, you know, CEO to part-time employee to full-time, whatever. What would you say to someone, because we've been asking this common question, what would you say to someone who feels stuck, like they feel like someone owes them, versus what you're saying they need to get out there and serve and work hard?
No, that's a great question. And for people like that who are not certain that they have a role, they have a place, they need to find their maker. If your automobile were stuck, you went to turn it on and it wouldn't go, what would you do? You'd call the manufacturer.
Right.
You'd consult your owner's manual. You'd find a solution and a step process to investigate what was wrong with it, wouldn't you?
Yep.
You take it in for service. But we don't do that with ourselves. The most complicated machine ever devised by God. We don't ever consult our owner's manual, basic instruction before leaving Earth, the Bible. We don't ever ask the owner what his plan for us is. Everyone that has ever been created or ever will be is unique, just like a snowflake. Every single one. Ask in the language that he will speak to you uniquely. What did he have in mind? Right? Jeremiah tells us, I know the plans I have for you. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you, to give you a future and hope. That's what he said. That's what he meant. I tell people on our show, 2 things God can't do. He can't lie, and he can't fail.
It's true.
We talked yesterday about, Shemaiah, we talked about people picking themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, that's a fallacy. It's no such thing. Because it takes people seen and unseen. And it takes a God in heaven to help us get where we're to go. But we can hold ourselves down. An individual can hold themselves down with their attitudes about themselves or those around them.
True.
So you can't lift yourself up, but you can be in a position to be lifted if you don't hold yourself down.
Wow.
What would you say to the next generation right now? We're all caught up in social media. We got all these different distractions. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good as far as counterproductive. What would you say to this current generation right now?
I would start with Vernon McGee's old quip. If it's new, it's not true. If it's true, it's not new. Stop wasting time looking for something to help you reinvent the wheel. Learn how to be productive with those things that you have and were given, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. That's what it's all about. Taking what you have, recognizing it as a blessing, being grateful for what you have, studying it, understanding its significance when it comes to this nation, and then using that for the advantage of someone else, and watch the blessings come back to you. It's amazing. I live Christmas every day. Every day there's a blessing. Every single day there's a blessing. It's just amazing. And it has been that way for 13 years. Now, if he does that for me, I know what he'll do for anyone else.
Right.
All you have to do is live a selfless life where you're trying to help somebody else. You reach out to someone else and watch what happens.
That's good stuff.
Speak to someone, too, who might feel like, well, I hear you saying, but why me? Why me? You know, someone who has that victim mentality. What would you tell that person to just get over it? Or
Sure. I would remind them that Jesus loved us this much, nailed to a cross, before you were born or committed your first sin, your first act of arrogance, your first act of self-pity. He died so that you could be free, for freedom's sake. Be free. Free yourself from these things because you're holding yourself down.
That's true.
Not hurt me.
That's true.
You're not making me upset, emotionally unwell. You're hurting yourself for no reason. The penalty and the price has already been paid. You've been released. Walk out of jail. You put yourself there.
That's good.
Step out of jail. You've been free. You've been given a free sentence, a free pass, by the grace of God.
And talk to like the film that you're part of, and give a little backstory of that, because I think this all ties together.
The film No Time to Run was conceived of by Scott Avery, John Green. They wanted to have a way to share in an entertaining way what this country was all about constitutionally, where it came from the founders, and recognize that it was these individuals, based on their understanding of God. So you need to study them. People will say, well, they were this and they, no. Go and do your homework. Read the letters they wrote. If nothing else, go to David Barton's book, Original Intent. Their letters are in there. You'll see what they thought when they wrote and spoke to other people. Things such as separation of church and state. It's nowhere in the Constitution nor Declaration. But it is in a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Connecticut Baptists. And he told them, I'm not going to get involved with your local dispute. That's the only time a piece of evidence, one sentence from a letter, was ever used in a court. Not the whole letter, but it's the only time in our history where a piece of a letter was used to deny somebody a right or privilege. It's wrong. William Rehnquist said it was wrong, and it needs to be reviewed, and we can talk about that another time, because I keep a trilogy of the Supreme Court justices, starting with Marshall, Rehnquist, and Douglas, so that we can see the evolution of the court and what we were about. This movie is about that, No Time to Run, where the protagonist, an African-American female, goes back in time using one of Ben Franklin's inventions, legitimate inventions, and asks the founding fathers to come forward to contemporary society and explain this country to contemporary society. And it's going to be entertaining. It's going to have that element of sci-fi in it, but it's going to have relevance without hammering or hitting it too hard, just letting people understand what this is. Because this has never happened before and will never happen again. Being in Special Forces, we have to study the history of the countries of the world, and we have to begin with our own so that we understand how it all comes together, because our job is to pull it apart. That's what Special Forces do. We don't kill people. We take down nations. That's what we're sent to do.
Right.
And if you notice, after 9/11, it took them about 6 weeks to take down Afghanistan. That's what Special Forces does. And we're very highly trained to do that. We had to learn about it. So I began to study even more than I did as a child. The United States and its leaders and the things they wrote. And then as a Christian, I added that piece to it. It all makes perfect sense. But in the history of the world, no other nation in 242 years has done what this country has done. Not even close. And it will never happen again. Never happen again. It's a unique situation. Pick your historian. Pick your economist. Pick anyone you choose. They'll tell you. This is the greatest, most wealthiest, most prosperous corporation ever designed to run as a nation. That's what this is.
Wow, man, this is the podcast you want to listen to.
Democracy.
Yes.
No one else will ever.
Well, remember, democracy is a great notion, but there are various types of democracy. What makes this unique is that it's a federal republic, not a democracy per se, because Athens had a democracy. But can you imagine having 330 million people voicing their opinions? Nothing would ever get done. It's a republic, which means we have representative government at its best. They may be representing something else that we need to put them in jail for right now, but that's another discussion for another day. But we have a representative government. We had our own leaders who didn't believe that we had the wherewithal because of where they came from. We talked about this. Those individuals who migrated from northern Britain purposefully didn't have the intellectual skills to do this. Those who came from southeast and southern England did. There were different classes of people there. They talked about each other. They were now here. They didn't believe we would ever get to the point where we could legitimately govern ourselves. Sometimes we do it well, other times we don't do it so well. But this is what we have. And Ben Franklin said, now let's see, can we keep it?
I'm going to ask you the same question I ask a lot of people who come on the show.
Please.
In your own words, what does success mean to you?
Success to me. They say a rising tide lifts all ships. So personal success, I've already achieved that. I know where my eternity is. I'm looking forward to that. My name's written on some little place. I don't need to be at the front of the table. I'm just grateful that I'm going to be at the table. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. For eternity. But if I can help somebody else, if I can help some community, if I can help some child with special needs, some veteran that was protecting my life, my security, and is wounded and can't get up now, and help lift them up. If I can help a nation recognize the better of itself and be that kind of nation that is a light on the hill, as it was supposed to be by God to the rest of the world, and has been in times. Who's the first nation that goes when there's a tragedy in the world? Who's the first nation that's there when there's famine or whatever else in the world?
That's true.
That's what we're supposed to do. No nation's people give in donations personally. I don't mean corporately personally, as this country does. Nobody does. Nobody does. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Success is when we all get this, that we're all in this same boat, rowing in that one direction. And the rest of the world recognizes, we may want to fight amongst each other, but don't mess with them. They're our only hope. They're the only lighthouse that's working. Okay, they're the light at the end of the tunnel. When we get to that point, I'll get to see my Lord again, because he'll come back.
And there's one thread I want to include in your story, man. What is faith to you, and how has that played a role in your entire life?
You say faith?
Yeah.
Oh, faith.
How's it been a part of your story?
Faith has always been a great part of my story. It's something that I've always carried with me and I never thought much about it. We talked and laughed about jumping out of airplanes. See, it's easy when your early life, you spend it in the service. I had to have faith that somebody packed my parachute. They didn't put the dirty laundry back there. When the cord went off, it wasn't somebody's bloomers going up in the sky, but it was an actual parachute. I had to have faith. I couldn't take it apart in the plane. It would have been a bad day for everybody. I had to have faith that the armorer took care of my weapon, that it was doped in properly, cleaned, and the ammunition was right and clean, ready to go. I had to know this. I didn't have time to fool with that as I was putting together what I had to do on my part. They had to have faith in me. This faith thing goes back and forth. So it was much easier for me when I finally got my head out of my fourth point of contact and became a Christian. Recognizing that this is a faith matter. God is spirit. He must be honored in faith and truth. It was easy this was easy. I saw the life I had, didn't want any more of that. That was it. That was enough. Like Moses, 80 years old, face down in the desert. That's it. I'm moving in a different direction. Repentance. In Romans 10:9. I believed in him. Confess Jesus Christ as Lord and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. I took that on faith. They told me, you jump out the plane, count to 4, the parachute's going to be open. Okay? That's all I need to know. On faith. If I can believe that, then man, I certainly can believe God Almighty.
That's right. And
he has never let me down. Not 1 minute of one day since then. Period. And he was there before. I'm not supposed to be here. I've been shot at, stabbed, drowned, supposed to be drowned, smashed up in the mountain on the side of my Jeep. Oh, okay, that was about 2 days of good work. And there was and I'm here. And I'm here. He was looking out for this time before I ever knew there would be this time. God, if I had known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken much better care of myself back then. I didn't think I'd make 30, and here I am now. Wow. Praise the Lord.
What would you tell someone who maybe doesn't understand it and might be interested listening to this podcast right now? What will you tell them? What's the next step for them to do?
The next step for them is stop trying to reason out something that is beyond their understanding. Always remember, God is not a little smarter than we are. This is a heart matter. Jesus told us that. This is a faith matter. All that we are is one thing. All that we do is about one thing. You don't have a part of your life over here that's your job, and part that's your family, and part that's this, and part... It's one life. And the sooner you bring it together and recognize that this is one life, and your character, remember, character is who you are when nobody's looking, imbues all of that with either honor or dishonor, and live that life accordingly, and then watch the blessings flow.
Man.
Wow.
Man. This is the first time you ever had a guest on the show where I just had... I'm trying to find something else to come back on that, because what about the Bible, what was it that just kept you hungry as far as being productive in life, as far as always making progress?
This was a fulfillment of that which my mother had always believed, even when there was nothing on the horizon, nothing in the press, nothing on TV that would suggest otherwise. She had this hope and faith in both my sister and I, in the nation, in our community, in the various ethnicities in our community. She said there would be another day. It's going to be a different day. And you need to be prepared for that day. Don't worry about today. Worry about that day and get prepared for that day. And of course, here we are. Praise God and hallelujah. She knew. She got it right. And she only lived to be 59.
Oh, wow.
And passed away at 61. But they left my sister and I a legacy. She's now working on her third term as the vice president of AFTRA, the American Federation of Radio and TV Artists. She's been national president of AFTRA. She's now vice president of AFTRA for programming. She had her own TV show for several years, 2 Emmy Awards. And this is my baby sister. I used to have to do the call mom when we got home from school because she was shy. But she's been up there doing her thing. And I'm very proud of her, very proud of her. She just retired about a year ago. She just got married 2 years ago. She was busy. She was busy. She was in her 60s. She got married finally 2 years ago.
Wow.
But for my sister and I, it's what we do.
What's the one thing that you want to do as you're, living your life? What's that one thing that you want to make sure you get done?
I'm doing it. It's amazing to me, but it's having a productive life right through the end. I see no point in not doing things, and I pray to the Lord daily to give me the health and the resolve, mentally and physically, to continue to be of value to him and just direct me in whatever I'm doing. I don't know what he has for me, but that's the exciting part of it. That's the jumping out of a plane at night. You don't know what's on the ground ahead of you. What an adventure it's going to be. And I live for the adventure of serving the Lord.
Who would you say was the greatest leader in your life? I might know the answer, but who would you say was the greatest leader in your life and why?
The greatest personal influence for me was my grandfather.
Why's that?
The Reverend Dr. Leonard Morris.
Okay.
Amazing, because at a time when, again, they were still posting signs outside of the NAACP in New York about the lynchings that went on in the South. He was going to college and making a difference. That part of the family came from the Iroquois Reservation in Canada. He was born in Boston, as was my father. And my other grandfather came to Boston as a youngster, had a fight, won. You couldn't do that back in those days. As an African American, you couldn't have a fight with a white kid and win. So he had to come to Boston at 16 and make a life for himself. That's the postal worker there. But he told us about things. We'd walk down the street as a child and say, "Granddad, people are looking at you." And I notice everybody stops talking when you come in the room. And he'd just play it off and say they're just being nice and they're just being respectful. He was a very spiritual man, and you saw it and you felt it in his presence. And it guided me. And when I became a Christian, I remembered, wow, that's Holy Spirit's inside of me. And Jesus is walking, and I'm walking with him now. I get this. It makes sense now. So, yeah, knowing I come from that legacy, all the way through. And there's no turning back. There's no turning left or right. There's no turning around. I'm third generation. My children are fourth generation college educated, and we're working on my grandkids. We're getting the fifth generation ready to go.
Wow.
Oh, and this, by the way, folks, I'm not talking about just my family, my immediate family. I'm talking about every uncle, every aunt, every cousin, on both sides of the family, in my extended family. Everybody goes to college. I have lawyers. I have my aunt, my mother's sister, older sister, was a doctor. I have architects, mathematicians, aerospace scientists, and retired lieutenant colonels, Air Force, others. All this. These are cousins, others. Everybody goes to college in my family. Become a part of my family. If you haven't gone, you're going. Simple. No disrespect. No, you're going.
Right.
Because that's how it's played here. The United States of America is a meritocracy. It's not who you are. It's not the color of your skin. Not how attractive you are. It's what you can do. Because the one color here is green. We've been trying to tell you that. That's why we elected a billionaire to fix this $1 billion, $1 trillion business. Okay? Because they know how to fix business. I have an MBA. I understand business. Meritocracy. What can you do for me that will turn a legitimate profit, not stealing money, legitimate profit? What is that for? To expand the business, hire more people, reach out and help another community. Growth, prosperity, people going to work. That's what makes this country work. Period. Now, if that's not what you like, we're only down the road and around the corner from the airport. Flights are leaving every half hour. This is the land of opportunity, not the land of entitlement. Either you got off the plane too soon or you got off too late. But this is not that place. Check your ticket. It said land of opportunity. We were raised when there was no opportunity.
True.
None. My dad got his doctorate in chemistry. 12 years it took him. No student loans. They didn't give loans to African Americans, even with excellent credit, like my folks had. One course at a time, raising 2 children, doing all the responsible things. He got it, though. Mom finished her bachelor's. They met in college. She finished her bachelor's. He got his PhD, and we got on to living. That's what it's about, getting it done.
In progress is a choice that we have to make. So
it's a responsibility. It's more than a choice. The choice is to be involved to get in the boat. Once you get in the boat, you have no choice.
Right.
Pick up an oar and start rowing. If you're not rowing, you don't need to be in the boat. You're taking the seat of somebody who wants to make a difference in their personal life, the life of their community, and their nation. So if you're not going to row with everybody else and move this, get out. Go to the sick, lame, and lazy land, okay, where you can sit around and play dominoes and do nothing all day if that's what you want to do.
Wow.
That's your choice.
That's good.
The Lord gave you that choice. He gave you free choice. That's not my choice. My choice is get in and row as hard and as fast and as well as I possibly can with the gifts He gave me, because that glorifies Him. It's not about me.
Right.
Never was, never will be. It glorifies Him to that person who's the unbeliever that you spoke to earlier. That lets the unbeliever know there's something in it for you too.
That's right.
The minute you get up off your six and start acting like you know and grabbing an oar and rowing, you honor your family, you honor your name, you honor your nation, and you honor, most importantly, you honor God.
So we should get ourselves out the way. That's what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. We are the only thing that holds us back.
That's true.
Individually. Take yourself out the picture. Give yourself to the Lord. He will then use you to benefit His kingdom. And you'll get to see His kingdom right here. Jesus said, behold, the kingdom of God
That's right.
is around and about you. He didn't say, I'm taking you to heaven, take a look. It was right here. You'll see the goodness of people right here. I get to see it every time I go to an Elks function. When Harvey hit, I was literally on my way to a district conference in San Angelo. They were on the phones in the cars, and when they got there, already putting together 53-foot tractor trailers in Texas, across the South, and from the rest of the country to come there. There were tractor trailers and people and provisions, Red Cross authorized provisions, that night from the Elks. The Elks fed the first responders for 2 weeks in Houston on our dime. It was our dollars. They were sending checks and food, and that's what we do. Get yourself out of the way and go make a difference in somebody's life. That's what I believe in.
And someone who's listening to this right now and they're like, man, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make that choice and get involved and be responsible. What's some things they should be aware of when they hit adversity? You know, when you're going down that road, that path of discipline, that path of leadership, that path of just doing the right thing. What's some things they should be aware of? And
understand that there is no sunny and yellow brick road. This ain't the Wizard of Oz. Okay, this is the real world. This is the real life. And there are going to be people out there every step of the way telling you that for whatever reason and in whatever nasty way they can, that what you're doing is wrong. Why? Not for any other reason, but the fact that they don't want to do anything. And what you do shames them. As the Bible says, heaps burning coals on their head. For their slight of not doing anything. That's all it is. You bring their shame by not doing anything. You bring it to light. There's going to be somebody all along the way. It's never going to end. And in fact, if nobody's criticizing you, it's only because you're not doing anything. When you start making a difference, somebody else is going to start taking an exception to what you're doing. Count on it, expect it, and count it as a badge of honor that you're making a difference. You got them right where they live.
That's right.
And your story is all about making a difference. You know, you have such a gift of the way I'm listening to you, just all these details. You have that mindset of I'm always going to go. I'm never going to stay idle.
This is my dash.
Touch on that a little bit. Someone who might feel like I don't know what my next move is.
Yes, I understand.
You know, say someone who they have in their mind, I want to start a business, but they're like you said earlier, they have themselves in the way.
Yes.
Touch on that.
There are a number of things that people venture out to want to do without necessarily the correct preparation. You don't drive a car without taking driver ed. You don't go to the pistol range without first learning how to shoot. But you're going to hurt yourself. Same thing with life. This is what is so great about God's gift, His church, to help you, because it's Him. It's the great I am that's going to come in and help direct you. If you need to go to school, all of a sudden you're going, I think I need to go to school. Yeah, you know you need to go to school because He just told you. And He'll help you find a way to do it. You'll say, I didn't know this was possible. And, well, there you go. Mm-hmm. It'll open up. Always has. If you need some other direction, in other words, there is an ever-present and ready help, as the Bible tells us, for you in what you want to do. But understand, all things are more than just a notion. I used to tell people when I was an enrollment advisor at the University of Phoenix that when your pleasure, your hobby, the thing you're most passionate about has to pay the bills, then you need to know something about business. Because that passion won't pay the bill. People say, well, but I know all these people, and I say, great. You get all the people to come to your business, buy whatever you're offering, perform whatever service you choose. What do you do tomorrow? You need to have knowledge about how to run a business. 95% of the businesses, small businesses in this country, and I'm an owner of one, go belly up. Not because people didn't have the passion, not because they didn't want to have the desire, but they didn't have the skill. Do you give a 16-year-old, 17-year-old your keys to your car without a driver's license? Just say, let's see how well you can do, and we'll see how much learning you need after that. You know,
that's good.
They're gonna be like James Bond, come back with one piece. Not bring it back in one piece. They're gonna come back with one piece. Right? Yes. So we all need the training to go with the passion. You put those two together, and that's a start. That means I'm involved in one thing. I'm rowing. I'm in the game. Watch all the other things that then will make themselves available to you, make themselves known to you.
That's good. Because, you know, out in the world, you have all this law of attraction and all this, like, feel-good speech and feel-good thoughts. But what you're saying is very fundamental.
Yes.
It's small details of whatever you're doing to sharpen your skills to be available for work.
Yes, because it's not about you. Even when I was in the service, I was a sergeant. It wasn't about me. Did you know a sergeant can't, say on the line, enemies firing weapons, you can't lay down and shoot with them? That's not your job. Your job is to direct them to shoot. If I'm firing for effect at the enemy, I can't direct those other people in my squad to do what they're doing. And it's actually a violation of the UCMJ for me to be doing that. I can instruct somebody, but then I have to get up and move down that line. That's my job. The best leader in a business is someone you see training the next person to take their place. You need to be teaching others how to be you from the beginning. Not later, from the beginning. So that you can move on and they can then expand this, build this. It's not about you. Never was. Never will be.
Man, time is flying by. We got 6 minutes left. But just to wrap this up, since we are talking about businesses, what's the one quality ingredient that every business should have, and why?
Integrity is the currency of business. Without it, you've got nothing. I don't care if somebody bankrupts you for $1 billion. Integrity is the currency of business. If I say I will, I will.
That's right.
The contracts are verbal, can be verbal agreements. They don't have to be written out.
That's true.
I don't even have to shake your hand. A verbal agreement, some certain at a specific time, is a contract, and it's legally binding in the United States of America. Thank you, John Marshall, 1803, third Chief Justice. He set it up that way so we'd have it that way. Integrity. I say this, and as an American citizen, most people will think, well, of course. But you see, that's only because you're here. You live here. The rest of the world does not see it that way. Go to Asia. Go to South America. Go to Europe. They don't have the same sets of rules and guidelines about that. They don't have the same scruples about that we do. Not at all. And it's perfectly okay, because that's the way they see the world. But it doesn't work here, and it never worked for them well either. It never worked for them either. You can go to the Philippines and watch people killing each other because of that lack of integrity. The duplicity going on between China and the free market economies they set up and the state-run economies they have, and watch the antipathy there because of this whole issue. And it comes down to integrity. I can't trust you, so how can I do business? You want me to drop off a tractor-trailer load of this, but I can't trust you to pay me, and I owe somebody for that manufacturing. Integrity is the key. Without it, you have no business.
That's right.
And you shouldn't be. You have no business being in business. Okay? And you're not in business without it.
And that, too, it does apply individually.
Absolutely. Comes down to the individual. It's about character.
Because this whole show, you know, is a lot of success that one will be hearing as far as your stories. But that success came with a price.
It's always a price.
And that's something that you are continually to be willing to pay.
Yes.
You know, I always hear, like, some of the great entrepreneurs, rent is due every single day.
Yes.
You can't just let it go by and say, I'll get it.
But this is a minor price. Jesus died for us. The least I can do is honor him by being honest, truthfully, speaking the truth in love as he asks us to do. How hard is that compared to what he did to give us this opportunity?
Man, 3 minutes. What's some of the last words you want to tell our audience right now?
We're going through challenging times, but recognize that this is not the first time that this country has been there. This is not the last time we're likely to be there. We're not to get ourselves wrapped around the moment to the point where we can't see the large picture, the big picture. This is why on the God Family Country radio show, what I share with people is that God's been here before, and you can read it in the Old and New Testament so that you'll understand. And we've been here before as a nation. Read your history and recognize that in both cases, we came through when people got in the boat, picked up an oar, recognized that it wasn't about them, but it was about character, and started moving in the direction for the future for their children and the rest of this nation. Every time we did that, we came through like that. And we're the only nation in the history of the world that can make that claim.
Once again, this is an episode you want to listen to maybe 2, 3, 4 times. Before we end the show, I just want to thank Lawrence, a.k.a. Larry Brown. Thank you for your service, man.
You're welcome. It was an honor to serve.
And thank you for your continued service that you're doing every day. It's amazing. Your schedule is super busy, but you carry that token of it's not about me. It's about just being responsible.
Being responsible and to honor God.
Awesome. Man, today was a great show, just like every Thursday. I want to give a special shout out to the one who's been down with us since day one, Rica Rodriguez, #1 barbershop in San Antonio, Rockafellas Barber Shop. And want to just thank our other sponsors, Bebe McClinton, All Sports, Speed, and Conditioning. Make sure you visit allsportsfitness.net, and the best donuts in San Antonio from Miss Kim, River City Donuts. Like I always say, guys, keep God first, and peace.
Amen.